Well, good afternoon. I'm Sheila Walkoff, a partner here in the Washington, D.C. office of McDermott, Will & Emery, and I am here to open the last session of the day on the reimbursement track. But before I get the opportunity to do that, I've been asked to give just a couple of housekeeping instructions to everyone. The first is to remind you that there's an amazing slate of speakers scheduled for tomorrow here at the conference, starting out with a plenary breakfast with FDA Commissioner Margaret Hamburg. And I know Commissioner Hamburg, and she's a great speaker and also a great person, so I hope you're all able to attend that breakfast. And secondly, right after this panel, there's going to be a chairman's reception in the exhibit hall, and that is sponsored by IDA Ireland with an Irish theme, so I've been told to mention the Guinness bar, but I also want to let everyone know that I'm responsible for opening the beer tap, and we're not going to do that until the session is completely over, but I'm sure that everyone will appreciate that and enjoy the session tremendously. So with that, I'll move on and just introduce the next in-house session, which is going to summarize the current status of research on how medical technologies are playing a key role producing innovative and cost-effective methods for delivering healthcare worldwide, with an emphasis on implications for payers, policymakers, and the industry at large. To take us through this last session, please welcome our moderator, Steve Hallisey, Vice President for Programs at InHealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome this afternoon. I didn't know about the Guinness offering, so we'll make this really, really fast. Welcome to this session of Research Reimbursement and the New Value Equation. It will be our pleasure this afternoon to talk about some of the research that is being sponsored by, funded by InHealth, and you can see here over the last 5.5 years, InHealth has invested about $11 million into grants in medical technology at some 10 institutions. And when we're done with our grant making for this year, that will be closer to $13 million. It's a pretty interesting group of organizations and a fascinating group of topics as well. We've also, in addition to that, invested a little over $1 million in programs, including our annual Medical Technology Summit, which you want to note this date down, the 14th of April next year in Washington, D.C., and we would certainly want you to be welcome there. Today you'll have a chance to hear from researchers at 4 institutions whose work is in progress, and we're excited to hear some of their reports, which is early stage and has not come to fruition yet, has not been published. But this is an early opportunity for you to hear what they've been working on and to get a feel for why this research is important to you and its relationship especially to the payer communities and to the issues involving reimbursement. Our first speaker will be John Bridges, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Health Policy and Management at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and also a research economist at the National Bureau of Economic Research. John has an international perspective on healthcare, having taught or performed research on 5 continents in both developing and developed countries, and he's worked with international organizations such as OECD and the World Bank, and has also been instrumental in helping us to negotiate what looks like it may turn out to be our first international grant. We're in negotiation with that now and hope that it will come to fruition. John?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk at this summit again, and also with InHealth, who have been a funder of mine for the last couple of years, and fingers crossed we can get the next project negotiated as well. Thanks for raising that, Steve. I wanted to first acknowledge some of my co-authors and collaborators at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. They're obviously the hearing aid people, my research team at the Bloomberg School, and also collaborators at the University of 20 that I've been working on some of the methodologies that I'm going to talk about. For a number of years, I've been talking about this thing called conjoint analysis and its role in comparative effectiveness research. And it and other methods such as discrete choice experiment have rapidly increased over the last decade or so. These are novel ways to measure the preferences of patients, physicians, policymakers, and other stakeholders that are grounded both in economics and psychology theory of choice. One of the questions that has been focused on in healthcare research, but also in marketing research, has been the optimal design of these choice experiments in a way that improves their efficiency, with efficiency defined in terms of the accuracy of the results. Here is our traditional way of measuring an outcome in health or a valuation in health. And here I'm kind of asking about a particular aspect, the ability of the hearing aid to focus in a quiet setting, and I give some text about the quiet setting, but the traditional metric is what's called a Likert scale. These can be unidirectional or bidirectional, but essentially we're going to use some text here such as not important at all, somewhat important, generally important, important, and very important. Sometimes I put in most important to kind of get some hierarchy going. But these scales are used widely. They're kind of like if you go in for NIH funding, this is a traditional mechanism in PRO instruments, the instruments that are used by the FDA for labeling claims. This is kind of the crux of the science, and unfortunately is reasonably poor science. And there's kind of two aspects that make this poor science. One is the variation in interpretation of respondents. I was doing some work with a colleague from Australia about a scale that was in development in the UK, and one of the things is it not at all important? Is it more than not important? You know, you get these kind of semantic type of differences, and when you look cross-culturally, you kind of generate differences in here. So when you look at, say, the way that people from Asia look at these type of scales, and then people from the US, they're going to approach this scale in a very, very different way. Another aspect that is kind of like a downfall of these methods is their ceiling and floor effects. They're bounded on a 5-point scale, so they kind of, any type of error in the measurement will kind of tend them towards the mean, a reversion of mean. So I've done a number of research studies in health where I've been asked to use these type of scales to kind of differentiate between different product attributes, and I come back and I say everything's a 4. And this doesn't really help the innovation process very much. It doesn't help the negotiation process with your funders or your regulators in kind of trying to make why your innovation is different than other innovations. This is the alternative approach. This is a conjoint measurement tool. Here we focus on all attributes simultaneously, and we present vignettes, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, 4 vignettes, and we here ask the respondent to choose. If I offered you 2 hearing aids with these 2 profiles and they differ systematically, which one would you choose? Then I regress the choice, and I ask this in a very scientific, very controlled environment, and I ask this choice over and over again until I can get some mapping of the value function. If we look here at the value functioning, the blue there is kind of the values from this rating scale. Everything, I've converted this to a willingness to pay, or just normalized the cost to its actual difference of $2,000, and we don't see very much variation. When we look at the econometric specifications of the choice model, both from an OLS point of view or from a logistic point of view, we can get really extreme differences. So let's look at that noisy situation, which in the literature is the most important aspect of a hearing aid, its ability to work in a noisy situation. We could think of a marginal willingness to pay for improvement from the traditional approaches of just, say, $2,500, but if we use the specifications of the choice model, we get something like $5,000 to $9,000. If this could be conveyed in an appropriate way to innovators, then we could probably fill this gap in the market of why people are concerned with their hearing aids, that they're not working in the noisy situations.